Hi, welcome everybody to the Conversation Hub. This week it's Tanya Lee and my good self, Michael Short, and we're looking forward to taking you through the subject of leadership coaching uncovered, how to lead with confidence. Tan, quickly over to you.
Good morning, Michael. Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited about this. I'm really passionate about coaching and the difference it can make. But I'd love to start by exploring the difference between coaching and mentoring, because it's words that are really used interchangeably, but are two very different things. And I know that I lead with coaching and put a bit of mentoring in. And I'd love to understand from you what you think the difference is between coaching and mentoring, and how you coach or mentor, or how you mix it up, Michael.
Sure. Yes. Well, mix it up is what I do. And I think that most coaches do, certainly, I don't want to be ageist, but certainly those with more of business experience tend to be lent on for some mentoring. And what mentoring means is, give me a bit of advice about what you would do in this situation. Where have you actually come across this issue? What have you done? How has that worked? What is the feedback you've received? And how have you yourself changed your own attitude? Coaching is very much about allowing the person to dig into themselves, allow them to discover their own solutions, and providing pathways for them to explore. Reflective practice is one of the common things we both talk about, and many other techniques that we use. So for me, coaching is about allowing the individual to discover their route and allowing them to build their own personal journey into what it is they are as a leader. Whereas mentoring is much more about, I need some advice here. I need some, and that again moves us into the what is advisory. And quite often we have roles where we're taken into clients, and those clients ask us for advisory around what we're actually doing. And again, that is different to mentoring. What about your good self?
Yeah, no, I worked with someone a while ago called Graham, who gave me the greatest quick off the shelf difference between mentoring and coaching. Mentoring is, I have a great answer for your question, and coaching is, I have a great question for your answer. And I completely agree with what you said. It is absolutely that. Mentors tend to be people that have been there and done it. So actually have been in those situations, and probably can give you some, I tried this, would this sit comfortably with you? When I've done this in the past, this is a success. Coaching is really that curiosity to find out, how do you want to move forward? What sits with you? So absolutely, both of those are really important.
Yes.
But today we're talking more about coaching within the leadership role. And
I think that the final thing I would add to that is that what you're trying to do with coaching is to enable the person to discover their method, their own method of leadership, their own method of delivery, where they are most comfortable, and getting them to explore their strengths into their leadership style. And that is much more difficult if you're mentoring someone, or teaching them, or actually showing them a route. That's really, it's the difference between mending the whole body and sticking a plaster on it, in my view. And it's not that mentoring is bad. And also the final thing, sorry, I meant to add, was you tend to find that people who come into an industry where they've been away a few years, or they don't have as much depth in some of the areas, maybe, say, for example, in banking and governance, they might have a mentor because they need to learn about what are the ways of doing things again in that industry, in that particular role.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is place for both of them. It's just understanding, for me, coaching is about holding that space. You talked about reflection earlier. So we know when you get to leadership, because we've both been in leadership positions, that time is the currency that you need.
Yes.
And busy people struggle to create reflection time.
Yes. Yes.
And for me, coaching is around holding that space. But a lot of the coaching I do with leadership is around confidence. And we know the further you get up the ladder in an organization, the less people you can talk to when you're not feeling confident. The less people that you have that you can give them their ear, it's much more challenging. So by having coaching and external coaching, it allows you, if you trust your coach implicitly, which is another subject, it allows you to show that vulnerability when you are not confident.
This whole issue of confidence, obviously what we've talked about in the title of this chat this morning, how to lead with confidence. You came up with a great question, and I'd like people who are watching this video or watching it live to think about the question you posed. And that question was, when was the last time you truly felt confident leading, even when you didn't have all the answers? That was a great question to come up for this session, Tan, because for me, it goes to the point you've just raised, and that is all leaders lack confidence. It's just a question of understanding how you are portraying yourself and how you overcome lack of confidence. And that isn't about being more bravado, in my view. As a coach, you're helping people to understand how they can become more vulnerable and more authentic. And that vulnerability and authenticity is exactly how you lead with confidence, which is a bizarre paradox.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not saying you've got to fake it till you make it. I hate that phrase. We absolutely won't want to fake it till we make it, because we are not our authentic, vulnerable selves. And actually, by doing, as you said, by showing that vulnerability, I don't know whether I've ever made a decision with every single fact.
No,
I don't think I have. I can't believe that anybody has made a decision with every single fact. It is having the confidence to make the decision with gathering all the facts that you can within that time frame. So I've made that decision, the best decision I have, with the information that I currently have.
I was only the other day talking with a CEO who I coach. And he came back to, it was 2 weeks later, he came back to me and said, I've just reread this and realized 2 weeks have gone past. And we were talking specifically about prioritization, and value generation and value growth, right? And in talking about those things, he was very much feeling he needed to lead, I felt, on those things, what he called lead. And we can come back to what he meant by that if you wish, but it'll become obvious. And what I said was, you need to let the other two lead, particularly in this scenario where the two were involved. And I said, because you don't know what they think if you tell them what you think. They will not. They'll find it much more difficult to go against you. And then the development of that was, well, what sort of things are you going to want them to do when they start to prioritize and think about what it is you want to do as a business first in their particular areas? And we began talking about risk and stratification, and that ability to be confident to say what you've just said. I don't know everything. I don't have all the data. And of course, when you're coaching leaders, when you're moving up the organizational, for want of a better word, pyramid, one of the things that becomes very obvious when you get to be a director or a CEO is you have less and less information. And you have to become more and more reliant on the people who work for you. And you talked about trust earlier, and that comes into it. And I always love that exercise we do together with clients where you stand up and go, and I always give you, whenever I've done it on my own, but I always give you quality shout out, which is, where are you on the pitch in the football stadium? Why don't you talk about that a bit? Because I think it's a lovely way of getting into leadership with confidence.
Yeah. So something that I introduced Michael to, and we use to really in teams to understand where you are in a team, and think about your team as a leader, and get them all in a room and say, right, we're in a football pitch, we're in a football stadium, any sporting stadium. There's lots of things in this stadium. There's the sub bench, there's the audit, the crowd, there is the ticket, the turnstile, the first aid station, there's the players on the pitch. Now go and stand where you currently are in that stadium. And it's so interesting where people put themselves. Some people are not even in the stadium. They're still at the ticket office. Mm-hmm. They're still trying to buy their way into the stadium to be part of the match, the team. Some people are on that pitch. Some people are on the coaching teams. And then ask people where they will make their greatest impact.
Yes.
Because they might not be in the right place to do that.
Yes.
And it's a great visual comfort.
Yes.
Sorry, Michael.
I think that it really brings out some fantastic vulnerability. I remember doing it, not with you. I remember doing this exercise, and one of the new members of the team telling the rest of the team he still felt as though he was in the changing room. Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk about inclusivity, when you talk about that, the four levels, as we talk about, of psychological safety, inclusion, safety, and one of the team members who was pretty senior, was very senior, was very important, and they're still telling you, well, I'm not on the pitch. Mm-hmm. I'm still in the changing room because I don't feel as though I've been accepted yet. Apart from the massive bravery they had to exhibit to say that, it does show you how, if you're confident and you can talk about the challenges you perceive, I think it's really a way of uncovering, as we talk about some of the leadership issues that we help coach. And for me, the other thing that often strikes when you do this is people start saying to you, well, I think I'm here, but I also think I'm there. And I also think, and all of a sudden they realize that leadership is a multidisciplinary, multi-role situation. And and just getting it out there and making it, verbalizing it, making it real, it's a fantastic opportunity for either the leader or the leadership team, or in fact any team, to start to understand how they perceive themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's a great lead into coaching as well, Michael. We do it as part of team coaching usually. You can do it in a one-on-one coaching session. And I think for me, it's that creativity within coaching in a safe space that allows you to look at things differently. We are not going to change the outcome if we go with the same mindset or the same actions that we currently do. And actually, to build confidence, we need to have that reflection. And I think, what we've said all the way through is confidence isn't about knowing it all. It's about in the moment of decision. And I love it's the statements attributed to Theodore Roosevelt, whether it is or not, I don't know. But he said, the best thing you can do is the right thing in a moment of decision. The next best thing you can do is the wrong thing. But the worst thing you can do is nothing at all.
Yes.
And actually, you need to lead with confidence to do that. Yes, of course, we always want to do the right thing. But actually, by doing nothing, we're not achieving anything. Even if we do the right thing, we can learn from that.
Yes. Paralysis of decision making, and we talk about this in the learning triangle, how you do smaller things in the loop at the top, where you're learning how you get the result, and then you learn to apply the result to other things. And you also bring me beautifully into something else that you love, and I know you're very good at, and we use, and we've both qualified recently as on supervision. Coaching supervision, which is quite a deep and difficult area to get into because you're supporting other coaches. But one of the things that I learned, and I know you were practice at, was constellation. And it's almost when you're coaching, that concept, and if you want to talk to either Tanya or I about constellation, please come back to us at the end, because we don't have time to go through it now. But that, I remember watching this coach describe a challenge that she had within a client. And it was like the football pitch. She was able to create a constellation and put the players in the constellation and then put herself in the constellation. And this remarkable moment where she'd used a book in the middle to represent the company. And she suddenly opened the book. And that mere physical constellation moment of opening the book suddenly opened up the whole discussion, the whole coaching supervision session we had. And this sort of, the other great advantage of how to lead with confidence is start the conversation. Find ways in which, so we often talk about storytelling as a way of starting conversation, a way of being authentic, the word you talked about earlier, the way of engaging others in who you are and your authenticity. What are your thoughts around constellation work and coaching and how we can sort of uncover leadership with that approach?
Yeah, again, Michael, I think this is the creativity we can start to use within coaching conversations. It's not just around having a conversation always. It is sometimes putting you. I've rediscovered creativity recently. Yeah, over the last 5 years, I'd say, God, I believe the work world tends to beat creativity out of you and puts you in conformity into you. And you know, we conform, we try to fit in, we change ourselves. I'm passionate about this belonging, you know, coming to work and belonging. Yes. So we change ourselves to fit in. We're not truly belonging. So for me, the benefit of having a coach, a creative coach, is they take you out of that comfort of conforming to really dig into your creativity. And I don't mean you're really good at doing a bit of art, because I'm not really good at doing a bit of art, but it's around creatively thinking around problems, giving yourself permission and confidence to try different things.
Yes.
And we know that confidence comes from practice. Actually, the more we do stuff, so that making a decision, even if it's the wrong decision, will give you confidence because you're practicing making decisions, critically thinking. We don't become good at something by accident.
No,
we
correct.
Just don't.
You're exactly on the 10,000 hours of practice point. You know, practice and application. And the other thing about leading with confidence that comes out of practice is, as you've pointed out a number of times, and I now want to pick up on it because I think it's a very important point. It's not about getting it right, because, you know, I've always said when I was a CEO, I want to be right 51% of the time because that means I'm winning. And you make lots of mistakes. What it is like going back to what I was talking about earlier. Did you analyze the decision enough so that and did you bring in everybody's thought? Were you vulnerable enough? Were you authentic enough to bring everybody in and we talk about the GC index, and did you use enough playmaker skills, and did you have all the 5 contributions that sit within the GC index? And that's something else you can come back to either of us on if you're watching this. But the whole point is, have you gone out and have you done that analysis so that you know what is the decision you're going to make is the best decision you can make, and by best, on the information that's available in an imperfect world where not all the information is available. So and that allows also the confidence of the team to say, well, and you'll hear people talk about this, but you won't see it in actual practice. We're 70% confident. What does that mean? Well, there are these 2 big things we don't know the answer to. Okay, so leading with confidence is about everybody in the room understanding that we've made the best decision we can, but that doesn't mean it's the right decision. And that, as you've said, and I'm just reiterating the point, I suppose, confidence is about knowing that you've taken everybody's view in, and the direction of travel is the best you can come up with.
Yeah.
It's not about being right. You do, however, hope that the decisions you make having us coached you or others coached you or learning as you go, that the decisions you make are the best you can make, and they will be the right ones. I think the other thing that we could talk about is what is the right decision today could be the wrong decision tomorrow. And in the VUCA world, are you confident, and do you have the leadership presence and capability to say, hey, hand up, I think we might now be going down the wrong path.
Yeah.
And that ability to say, well, we all made, I if you're the CEO, I personally took the decision we go that route, or the chief marketing officer or whoever it was made the right call at the time. That doesn't mean in 6 months' time we don't have to review that decision and say, with the best information and evidence we now have available, the decision should be to stop doing that and to do this, or to reprioritize that and not to do this anymore. That is about how you lead with confidence. It's not continuing to beat, as an awful phrase, whipping a dead horse. But it's not about continuing at all costs. That's not confidence. No one will thank you for just doing things because we said we would. That's not confidence. That's dogmatism. And I think very often, I have certainly seen confidence misplaced into dogmatic behavior. Yeah, we're confident in our decision making. Right. When did you revisit it? Well, I always remember someone talking to me about the NHS IT project, and the project brief, I'm not joking, was 10 foot deep. And I'm not joking, it was 10 foot deep. And no one ever made that became a dogmatic program rather than one of confident leadership about what has changed. And imagine IT. I mean, this program was run over 15 years. Nothing was in date anymore. So you do have to revisit what confidence means. And confidence means, do we still have everybody with us on the decision? Have we questioned our assumptions? And have we now learned more that allow us to, and I think coaching really helps people be aware of those circumstances and allows them to develop as a leader.
Yeah, and I think, we've sort of come full circle, really. We talked about this at the beginning. Confidence is not that dogmatic. We are going to do it because I don't want to fail, because we've said we're going to do it. Confidence is sometimes having that conversation to say, we need to stop doing this. And you brought up the VUCA world. I just want to talk about what VUCA is, because I don't think everyone is aware. It started in American War College in the 1980s. It was brought up around the end of the Cold War, and it talks about our world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and with ambiguity. The only thing that we are absolutely certain of in this world is change. We are constantly changing. you know, that ambiguity, that complexity, volatility, uncertainty, to lead with confidence, we need to get comfortable with all of those things. And
yes.
that is challenging. To be comfortable with that ambiguity, to be comfortable when it's complex, to be comfortable when it's uncertain, and to be comfortable when it's volatile.
I think you're absolutely right to run people through that. And again, it's something you can come back to both Tan and I about if you want to discuss VUCA and how we help coach and how we both help teams in a VUCA environment. But going back to what you say, I want to pick out ambiguity. As we move forward in the AI world, people suddenly think that AI is going to make things less ambiguous. I've got some sad news for you. It's not. It's going to make it even more ambiguous because things will change more rapidly. So what was right literally weeks ago will be incorrect in a few weeks' time. Now, the question then for leadership becomes what, and this is again a different subject that we could do another time, but what is the importance of stability in leadership versus being changeable in leadership? Versus how does that affect the confidence of people in the leadership? And I think those matters now. I really, I mean, I would say this, wouldn't I? I'd be interested in your view. I don't understand now how CEOs and CXOs, the exec suite, can actually do their jobs in an expansive world without having some sort of coaching, whether that's team coaching overall or whether that's individual coaching. What are your thoughts on that?
So, you know, one of the reasons I got into coaching, Michael, and realized the importance was that I had coaching as a director, as a senior leader. And I realized how important it was to have someone hold space for me. You know, what we talked about at the beginning is having those moments where I can really deeply think, reflect, and talk about reflective and reflexive. You know, what else am I bringing into the room with me? What biases what am I bringing in? How do I have those conversations? How do I build my confidence in leading in this uncertain world? I think it's very important the higher you get up in the organization to have external coaching. Obviously, I'm going to say that, but you know, having been a recipient of it, I understand the importance of it. You know, it is for you as a CEO putting on your oxygen mask so that you can support your team.
I remember being asked a question before I really was into coaching when I was first a CEO. What is it that you'd like to go back and tell yourself now? And it entirely reflects what we've just been discussing. And I said, I actually used a stronger word, but I said, for God's sake, bloody relax. And just let things happen a bit more and not worry so much about whether you're doing the right thing. And I think that above everything else, coaching, and I'm going to come back to you and ask you whether there's something that you've answered that question, but coaching allows you to bloody relax. It allows that space. It allows you the confidence. It gives you the confidant in which you can discuss your fears and concerns, and you can discuss how I might be appearing to others or how I might be coming across. And that sort of, in inverted commas, bloody relax has always stuck with me. Not because it was my advice to myself, but because a very good person had pulled out the answer from me. And the more I reflected on it, the more I felt, yes, I needed a coach at the time, which I didn't get, by the way. I needed a coach at the time to actually help me to relax and to become more confident in my leadership by being more authentic, more vulnerable, and more honest about I don't know the answers to everything.
Yeah, and I've had the very same question, Michael. My advice to my younger self would be yourself. Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Be yourself. Have the confidence to be you. Yes, really conscious we're coming to the end. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to leave you before Michael closes up with just a coaching question to ask yourself. Just a little bit of reflection. Where do you feel most natural leading? When are you really confident? And when do you second guess yourself? And why? I'm going to leave you with that. Michael, do you want to close up?
Just to say thank you to everybody who's joined us live. Thank you to everybody who listens as we go through. There's a couple of moments where I have and Tanya have pointed towards things you might want to ask us about. We talked about where are you on the pitch. We've talked about the VUCA world and many other things. So if you have questions, please don't not ask. We're here to be asked. That's why we do this. So thank you, Tanya, for joining us. Emperor Coaching, a fantastic business. Thank you for joining us. Culture Works Consortium, we are a consortium, as you can see, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.